Well, let's get into post UFC 249 because my goodness, what a night. Worth the wait, I would almost say, being that we haven't seen an event since, when was UFC 248? I didn't even look that up before I started filming. A long time ago, I think. A long time ago. But last night, wow. Where do you guys want me to start? You guys want me to, I'm not going to bury the lead. Let's talk about Gaethje and Ferguson right off the bat because, my goodness gracious. That was, if someone would have said, hey, Jesse, Justin Gaethje is going to win by technical knockout after beating Tony Ferguson's face into hamburger in the 5th round, I feel like I would have bet pretty heavily against that outcome because I think the widely accepted consensus was that Justin Gaethje was a wild person that had no ability to control himself and was not going to be able to go out there and measured attack, hit Tony, not get hit, he wasn't going to be able to control himself. If he started landing punches, he was going to spaz out and go in like a wild person because he loves it so much. One of the best lines from yesterday is when Justin Gaethje goes, yeah, when I lost to Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, I was having too much fun out there. Could anything else sum Justin Gaethje up better than that? And I promise you in future videos, I'm going to talk about that a lot. He referred to the way he fought against those guys, which means getting punched in the head so many times that he literally collapsed from damage, as having too much fun. He comes from multiple generations of copper miners in Arizona. He's like the epitome of hardened steel, hardened copper, American born and bred, an American family, blue-collar gangster, who already, through, I would imagine, coaching from Ali Abdelaziz, is playing the I'll do this for America card when he fights Khabib, which is a genius way to approach that fight. Because listen, let me tell you what's about to change for Justin Gaethje. Boop, 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 boop. He's about to have more money than he's ever had in his entire life times 100, okay? He is a belt holder now, okay? These interim belts, people go, oh, interim belt doesn't mean anything. Bullshit, it doesn't mean anything. Because he's going to get a piece of that pay-per-view when he fights Khabib. And he just buried Tony Ferguson. Let me tell you what this means as it relates to the fight game, okay? The reason the fight game is the best sport ever, and I've said this a million times, is the stakes of every fight are so massive as it relates to whether you win or lose, you almost can't exaggerate it. The stakes are so high. And the bottom line is, any fighter can take what the other fighter has in one night. So think of what Tony Ferguson was, right? Tony Ferguson had racked up 12 consecutive wins in the UFC among Murderers Row at 155 and was considered potentially the best lightweight of all time, right? And last night, in one night, Justin Gaethje took that from him. Everything that Tony Ferguson was is now Justin Gaethje's. Justin Gaethje's going into the Khabib fight with people like, he can win this fight. He can win this fight. Now, I am going to direct all of you guys to things I've been saying for months and months and months, which is that Justin Gaethje is the worst matchup ever for Khabib. Ever. I still have Conor beating Gaethje. Still. But I've had Gaethje beaten Khabib from the beginning, and anybody can go back and look, and you'll be able to find many times that I've said that. And I have Conor losing to Khabib. Matchups make fights, but the respect that Tony had is now Gaethje's. And going into that fight with Khabib, and he's playing the America versus Russia card, genius. Absolutely genius. Because ain't nobody more Russian than Khabib. And now that I know a little bit more about Gaethje, ain't nobody more American than Gaethje. Multiple generations copper miners in Arizona. Show me someone more American than that. That is like America by definition, right? And he's one of those guys that, like, had he not been born a phenomenal athlete, he would have been someone who was leading a team in the copper mine, because he was just a guy who just could work endlessly because he's a grinder. And the people who employed him would love him because they would look at him and they'd be like, this is a quiet guy who gets the job done every time. He's called in sick one time in 30 years, and it was because his wife was about to die in the hospital. You know, he's one of those guys. Like, there's no excuse. He's going to get it done. If you don't respect that, then there's something wrong with you, okay? Now, Gaethje's never going to be a Conor. Like, he's not going to be a guy who's going to be on the mic and is going to come up with some clever stuff. He's doing what he does. He gets on the mic. He had a great line the other day. A great line the other day. One of the best lines that you could expect from a guy like that, where he's not trying to even pretend that being clever is his thing, right? Like, there are guys where that's their thing, man. Conor is the most clever dude ever. Chael Sonnen, a beast on the mic, dude. A beast on the mic. Gaethje's not even pretending to be that. But his line the other night, beautiful. When Tony Ferguson called him one-dimensional, someone asked him about that, and he goes, yeah, I take that as a compliment because my one dimension is putting people to sleep. I was like, God damn, that is a hell of a line. That's a hell of a line. What are you going to say about that? Yeah, my one dimension is just putting people to sleep. My one dimension is flat backing people, dirt napping them. So, yeah, you're right. I am one dimensional, and I'm going to break your face, and that's exactly what I did. To think about how that fight actually went is so bananas, dude. It's like Tony Ferguson literally, like, it's like, here's the other thing. Okay, so there's Gaethje. Okay, Gaethje was here before last night, a huge underdog. Okay, no matter what anybody said, you know, oh yeah, Gaethje can win. Gaethje was a big underdog in that fight. Okay, I bet on him last night, and anybody who watched my live video on TikTok can attest to that. But they can also attest to the agony that I went through when I was trying to pick that. Because the only reason I took that is because I was getting 2-1, you know, bet 500, you win 1,000, versus bet on Tony, and you have to bet fortune to win much less. And I figured they're pretty close to even Steven on who I think is going to win, so I'm just going to bet Gaethje, but I don't feel like super confident he's going to win, unlike the other bets I made last night where I crushed it, but we can talk about those later. But you think about that with Gaethje, where now he was here and now he's here. Now let me talk to you about Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson, if he could come back from that fight and get a big win. Now, I don't really know who he fights. Dustin Poirier is the only one that makes sense. As a matter of fact, Dustin Poirier, it has to be him. But he cannot fight for 6 months. I'm talking can't. If this guy wants to have any hope of having a career past this fight, he cannot fight for 6 months. Like, for real, 6 full months. And I'm not talking about 6 months where he starts training again in 2 and starts getting beat up. This guy needs to spend 5 months. As a matter of fact, he shouldn't fight for 8 months. He should take 6 full months, and all he does is run and go to acupuncturists and go to chiropractors and go to physical therapists, and he should repair his body the best he can because he's 37 years old. I don't care what he says about his clock. I don't think that last night was the result of him declining as an athlete at all. I do not believe that at all. I think that stylistically, he's herky-jerky. He's always had this really weird style. But like I said before the fight, he gets hit, right? Justin Gaethje, now we see how good he is on his feet when he's measured. When he's not like, oh, I'm going to just take shots. Listen, I'm trying not to do this tangent thing today, but I have to do one tangent. So one guy, and I've brought this up, I don't know actually if I've brought this up on here, but I've brought it up offline conversations many times. Mix Molly, if you see this, you can attest that I've talked to you about this a bunch. I am very bullish on Cody Garbrandt's comeback. Like, in the framework of he's just lost 3 in a row by knockout. Okay, normally a guy gets knocked out 3 times in a row, and you're like, eesh. Same with Cowboy. Like, I was very impressed with Cowboy last night. Very impressed. We can talk about, we're going to get to that. This is going to be a long video, man. This is probably going to be the longest video I've ever done. But matter of fact, I can guarantee you it's the longest video I ever done, because I watched Luke Thomas's thing this morning. He did like an hour and a half. I'm like, geez. I did 26 minutes talking about Masvidal and Conor yesterday or 2 days ago without even trying. This is going to be a nightmare lengthwise. Anyway, but so this is also going to be podcast. Like, I'm not doing edits on this. This is just going to be like, you want to hear what my podcast is going to be like? This is what it's going to be like. So, Tony Ferguson. I'm sorry. Retract. Cody Garbrandt. Coming off 3 knockouts. I listened to his interview when he was talking about how he had the kidney problem and then he was coming back, etc. And he was talking about how he went and trained with Duke Rufus and those guys, and how at Team Alpha Male, he never went in with a game plan. And so he was just going in there and he was punching wild and he had knocked everybody out. And listen, this is just the reality of a situation, okay? Like, you look at Justin Gaethje. There is a dividing line in his career from Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier losses to the new Justin Gaethje, which is, I can't get hit. Like, I'm not going to get hit to give hit. I can hit them without getting hit. So I just need to be patient. And also I can conserve myself for fight. I mean, dude, he hadn't even slowed down in the 5th round. He looked amazing today. Like, I mean, yesterday, like, amazing. The more I think about Justin Gaethje's performance, the more impressed I am. But the bottom line is, he was a completely transformed fighter after the Eddie Alvarez fight. And actually, that's something Luke Thomas said also, but he said it, so I'll give him credit for it. I'm not taking it from that. This is something I've talked about many times. But he said, the way he described it, though, which is accurate, is there's like a dividing line in his career. Before those fights, after those fights. Fact. And Cody Garbrandt, he lost 3 by knockout, but the one was to TJ. Look, like, this is the thing, okay? So he lost the first one to TJ, but he had just clipped TJ at the end of the 1st round where he thought he was knocking him out. And so he went in wild in the 2nd round, and then he got knocked out. So he went into that 2nd fight very confident that he was like, man, if I went in crazy because I almost knocked him out at the end of the 1st round. He was like looking at him across the ring. He's like, you're going down this round. And then he got clipped. So then he goes into the 2nd fight and he gets knocked out. Okay, so that's his first like legit knockout to him, right? Like, where he's like, damn, I got knocked out. Then he's going into his next fight. He's on 2 consecutive knockout losses, even though they're both to TJ, and really only one of them is real to him in his mind. He hurts the dude and he goes crazy, starts throwing maniacal punches. If you guys haven't watched that, watch Cody Garbrandt's last knockout. Like, I've actually never seen somebody lose it like that in the octagon, where it was like he hurt him. And he was like, oh my God, I hurt him. And he just went crazy. He started throwing just wild punches. And like, listen, Garbrandt is a very good fighter. He doesn't have a super strong chin, though. He can be knocked out, right? Like, I'm not saying he has a weak chin. Like, every time he's gotten clipped where he's gone out, he's gotten hit hard. But he likes to get in the pocket. And when people start swinging, he starts swinging. So he gets hit. He gets hit straight on. Like, that's the thing, man. Like, you look at how, like, Luke Rockhold got knocked out by Romero and then by Blachowicz. Jan. I'll murder his name and just not even care. But you look at how those went down, and it's like, dude, he got hit square. Like, square. Everything a guy had right on the button. And everybody's going to get knocked out with those. Now, if you stand in the pocket and when you start trading, instead of like boom, boom, where there's a huge difference between being in the pocket and being like boom, 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 boom. You see these guys that get in the pocket and they just start going because they know the other guy's open. And they're like, oh my God, it's my chance. Ah! Okay, well, how are you looking while you're doing that? Oh, cool, wide open. And then one gets through and you get hit square. There's no reason to do that shit. If you're faster than the other guy, like Cody Garbrandt, if you're an excellent boxer, just be patient, dude. Be patient. You don't need to do that. You don't need to put yourself in that much danger to land punches like that. And Cody Garbrandt said that when he went and trained with Duke Rufus, they pointed that out to him, and that he needs to start approaching the game differently, and basically that it's a game of tag. You're trying to hit them without getting hit. And he's fast, and he's like, and I'm real good at tag. And I watched that. I was like, he's going to come back, and he's going to do really well. Because he's a really sharp kid. I can tell, like, Cody Garbrandt's one of those guys. I could tell you right now, me and Cody, at some, as this channel grows and I become the, number one MMA analyst in the world, me and Cody Garbrandt are going to be boys. I can promise you that. Like, he's a dude where we'll know each other. We will get along very, very well. When he's done fighting, I might even do a podcast with him. What do you know about that? That's how much I could tell me and him are good. And you know how? That dude has excellent taste in brands. That dude rolls Gucci everywhere. So I know. That's how I know. Of course, if he likes Gucci, then he and I would get along great. But yeah, so that is Justin Gaethje and Cody Garbrandt. Now, Tony Ferguson, coming back to Tony Ferguson, okay? Now, what I'm going to say about Tony, needing the time off doesn't necessarily connect directly to Cody Garbrandt as much as you can't take that amount of damage in a fight when you're 37 and ever be the same. I'm going to say that. Ever be the same. That is too much. There's a certain amount, okay, so, and I realize I'm tangent city right now, but I can't help it. Like, I've gone into this video, I don't care. I'm going to empty my brain. This is how my brain works, okay? So, you think about Francis Ngannou as a fighter, and I've been saying this forever, and I found a very legitimate way to enunciate this idea, which is that you talk about people's chins, you talk about some people's power. We already know that Francis Ngannou is the hardest, in fight science, no one has ever generated the kind of punch power and weight that Francis Ngannou does. It's a fact. He's the number one ever, okay? And I believe he's the number one ever. But regardless, my point is, so now let's talk about people's chins as it relates to, let's say they were on a construction site and a wrecking ball fell off of the crane and went, and, huge construction accident and slammed into a human being. Are we talking about their chin, or is that just too much force for a human being to absorb? Right? Like a wrecking ball on a construction site, that's too much. I don't care about your chin. You can't absorb that, right? You're dead. Okay? Well, what I'm saying is Francis Ngannou, his level of power is a wrecking ball where a human being cannot absorb it, okay? If he hits you square, you're done. If he hits you grazing, you're done. How Stipe absorbed what he did is actually really unbelievable. But bottom line is, I don't think he'll do it again. I think that Ngannou is going to dirt nap Stipe next time they fight. And I think DC was looking over at Joe Rogan laughing about how he's like, I ain't taking that fight, man. There's no, why do you think these guys aren't even talking to DC? Hey, DC, why don't you fight Ngannou? Hey, if Stipe won't fight, DC, why don't you fight Ngannou? He doesn't want that fight. He don't want that fight. I love DC. I love DC. But talk about a no-win right there. Like, that, it's, if he's going to fight anyone but Stipe, you fight John Jones. You don't want to put your entire future life in danger with the damage you could take from that guy. And that's coming back to my point from Ferguson. He is so tough. And he must have got hit with 50 shots last night that would have KO'd any other guy. Literally any other guy. And he just absorbed it. Dude, when he tried to shake that jab off, when he got hit with that jab in the fifth, listen, okay? I've been watching this game for a long time. I was watching mixed martial arts before I even put gloves on to box. This is a true story. I boxed and kickboxed for years. I was watching UFC before I ever even tried it. So, I had gotten in street fights before I boxed. And I got in street fights, actually it's totally irrelevant. But bottom line is, UFC predates me even knowing what I'm looking at, right? And as I got, kind of in that sport, I was getting older, and now I don't like looking at guys taking damage like that at all. When I was in my early, mid, even probably late 20s, I was looking at guys, I loved watching guys just get battered. I loved it. And it doesn't do it for me anymore. It's not what it's about. That's not what the sport's about for me. The sport is about the competition. The Gaethje gets to take what Ferguson built. Now, I will say I do not like at all knowing how much money Ferguson has been making over the years, because he's the most underpaid athlete in the UFC, and because he lost to Gaethje, he's lost the opportunity to get his big payday. That I do not like at all. That's not what I'm talking about in terms of taking things from him. But I'm talking about the respect, right? Take the money off the table. That's not what I'm talking about. But he took it. He took what Tony had. And, you know, it's the best sport ever. But here's the deal. Tony took too much damage in that fight. I mean, I'm telling you, he's 30. Even if he was 25 years old, I would tell you he's never coming back the same from that. Like, if you're a fighter, okay, you are very similar to a NASCAR team. Like, do you think that, like, Dale Earnhardt was winning by himself? No. You know, you have a crew and you have a car, right? Your car and your crew and you're the driver, right? Okay, well, as a fighter, your body is the car. And it can only take so much damage. Like, you can't take over a threshold of damage and be able to react the same, still get hit with the same shots and not go down, move as quickly. I mean, dude, you look at like some of these guys who are older. Look at Mark Coleman in the, like, you know, the Where Are They Now? The guy moves like he's 85 years old. Now, he took some serious beatings. And I will tell you right now what the dividing line is from guys who are super wrecked and guys who are fine when they're older. And it's fighting really, really late into their 30s and into their 40s. That is what it is. It's because, like, the body does not recover like it used to. And Tony is a freak. And I'm not saying he's there. I'm not saying, like, he, you know, oh, dude, hang him up. But at age 37, a beating like that, okay? A beating like that. Dude, picture the human body as what it is. Like, picture a spine, a spinal cord with a skull attached to it, and tissue and muscle fibers and tendons and connectors and nerves, okay? And when you fight and you get hit, just picture a piece of meat that's put together like that, right? But just picture it. And imagine you had a piece of meat that was put together like a human body, and then you let Justin Gaethje 50, 60 times, okay? Like, it's gonna get readjusted, right? Like, just because you're able to walk around and move and look the same, you know, the meat suit is not the same as it was 24 minutes ago, right? And if you're 24, the meat suit is going to recover better than when you're 37. And in your 37, or when you're 45, or however old Mark Coleman fought to, it doesn't put itself together the same. And that's when guys slow down permanently because they, you know, man, I just really hurt my hand. I don't know if my hand's ever going to get put back together the same. Titanic power in this right. But yeah, I'm concerned for Tony. I really, honestly, I don't know, man. I you know, he's had like the mental health thing going, and now taking a beating like that. I'm not bullish on his life. Like, that's, you know, and I mean, I'm not saying that at all as a negative towards him whatsoever. I have, like I was saying, look at that. Trying to throw the microphone at me? What's up, dude? Jesus. No respect. Anyway, but like I said, I feel like he's been unintentionally taken advantage of. Listen, I have nothing, like, me and Dana, you're never going to hear me say nothing bad about Dana ever, okay? If I disagree with something that the UFC does, you can consider me like the CNN of Dana White, like as CNN is to, like, hating Donald Trump. So, like, I'm the inverse of that, where I'm Fox News to Dana White. I as an entrepreneur, if you guys look into my background, actually look at what I'm about, what I've done, building companies, etc., or, you know, building companies and then, you know, and failures and successes, whatever. Dana is my fucking idol. I mean, straight up. Like, Dana is what I would go work for Dana in 1 second. As a matter of fact, for the 100th time, Dana, if you hear this, I will literally drop everything, move my family in an RV to wherever you want me to, and do whatever you want me to, because I know you slide me in, look in my eyes. Do I look like a guy who's going to disappoint you no matter what responsibilities that you lay on me? Because I won't. But as it relates to Tony Ferguson, through a matter of circumstance, he has gotten, for lack of a better word, effed out of money he should have had. Because it just never, he's just an incredibly unlucky guy as it relates to his career. No one wins 12 fights in a row without fighting for the title for real. He has never had a real title shot. Think about that. He's won 12 consecutive fights, and he's never fought for the title. He won an interim belt, and then he tore the ligaments off his knees because he was wearing sunglasses backstage. He had a title shot at Khabib, and a global pandemic broke out, right? Like, this is the thing, dude. Guys do not make real money until they have the belt. Unless you're a very special, select few fighters like Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal. Those guys. I mean, honestly, like, those guys. And you want to know what I was talking about with Justin Gaethje? How come Nate Diaz is in that category? Nate Diaz made $40,000 for the fight he did before he fought Conor McGregor. He made $10 million for the second Conor McGregor fight. And you know why? Because he beat Conor and he took that hype and respect from him. And then when Conor came back and won the rematch, Nate Diaz fought so hard and so well that even though he lost, he won. Now, Nate does not like to lose. If you haven't noticed, when he loses, he doesn't fight for a very long time versus when he wins. He wins, he's like, yeah, let's do this next week. When he loses, he acts like, I don't know. I mean, I will say also, he made $10 million for the second fight. He probably was chilling with money for a while before he wanted to fight again. But he fought Anthony Pettis. He won that fight. And then, he realized how much pull he had. And he made a fortune for the Masvidal fight. But I don't hear him clamoring for a fight. Although there's COVID. Who knows what's going on? He had to have plastic surgery. I don't know. But it's not like he's itching to fight all the time. But he took that from Conor like Gaethje took it from Ferguson. So, yeah, man, I am very excited to see Gaethje fight Khabib. I mean, stylist. Listen, straight up, I will tell you this right now. I made a video asking whether Khabib is actually as dominant as people think he is because he hasn't run through the division. He hasn't beat Ferguson, hasn't beat Gaethje, hasn't beat Oliveira, who, if he keeps winning, is going to be a nightmare matchup for him. Has to beat Conor again. He's got a lot of guys to beat before he's like a GOAT conversation. But if he out-wrestles Justin Gaethje, if he does to Justin Gaethje what he's done to everyone else, where he just overpowers him, takes him down, makes him tired, beats him up, and submits him or finishes him, you will never hear a word from me questioning Khabib ever again. But I think Gaethje is a nightmare matchup for him. I really do. One thing, Nate Thomas brought up a good point today. I'm quoting him a lot, but, normally I don't listen to other analysts. This is the only time I've really sat and really, I listen to Shale, but I disagree with Shale more often than, I don't know, I disagree. But, there are certain things I'm not in a position to argue with him about, but there are a lot of things that he does, and I'm like, man, I wish I could just debate this guy. Because I love this guy. He's my inspiration. I got on fan questions twice, and I was like, what am I doing? Why don't I just do this? I started doing it. I guarantee that my retention numbers are better than his, or at least as good. 60% retention. What's up? What's up? We'll see what they are on this when I stick an hour and a half video up. But yeah, so anyway, I don't know. I forgot my point. Let's move on. Okay, I haven't even gotten past the first fight. So let's talk about Cejudo and Cruz, because let's start with Cejudo's. I guess let's start with the fight, right? So the fight was an incredibly impressive performance by Cejudo. I was on a live stream on TikTok, so anybody who watches this that was also on TikTok can attest to this. I said from the first 20 seconds, Cejudo's going to win. Because I was saying in the pregame about how, listen, Dominick Cruz, what he has that's different than every big guy that he's, Demetrius Johnson, TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, all incredible fighters, world class, top of the heap. All of them are super short. Dominick Cruz is really tall, herky-jerky, and he can control distance really well. And I said that's what he's going to have to figure out. That's what he's going to have to navigate is the distance control, because he's really short. And in the first 20 seconds, the first leg kick that Cejudo landed, I was like, he's going to win. I mean, literally, I said, this is over. This is over. I mean, he landed an absolutely murderous flush kick, and he moved in so fast, and he had so much weight behind it. Like, this is the thing about striking, at least in my case. You have a choice between punching or kicking fast or punching and kicking heavy. Not hard, but heavy, where you literally put all the weight of your leg behind it, or all the weight, like just, and some people, it's like, to do it as heavy as you can, you have to sacrifice the speed that it gets there, right? Some of these light heavyweights that, you watch, they look like they're moving slow, but they're so heavy. Like the strikes are so heavy. You hear it, you hear meat hit meat, and you're like, oh my goodness gracious. Like, they're moving much slower than a boxer, but a boxer is throwing speed. Like, you watch Floyd. I mean, Floyd Mayweather's not a great example because he's not trying to knock people out, but I mean, look at that. Like, you know what I mean? That's not a heavy strike, versus even a jab where that's a heavier, but it's slower, right? It's light and fast, or it's heavy, crossing, or, you can't do both. At least you have to sacrifice speed if you want to go heavy. And especially with kicks. And Cejudo, Jesus, he was heavy and fast on that first kick, and I was like, this is done. If he can get in on Dominick, and Dominick knows he's going to come in with those kicks, and he landed that flush on the first, it's over. And I was right. Now, Dominick looked pretty good in the second round, better, but the early stoppage thing, maybe early. He was getting up at the very end, but he took a very vicious knee. Did you see the replay? He was like, ooh. It's like, if someone freeze frames his face on the way down, where he had like kind of like a crooked, my brain is not telling my face what it's supposed to be doing face on. That was, Listen, I'll tell you guys right now, if you ever freeze frame my face while I'm talking, I look like a complete idiot. Like, that is one very consistent thing that I challenge you guys to do. Just press pause on one of my videos anytime. Literally, it doesn't matter when you do it. I will always have a stupid face on. Somehow, in motion, I watch myself on the Finder. I'm like, yeah, man, my face is looking cool. I look like a bouse while I'm talking. You freeze frame it at any moment, and I'm like... Anyway, tangent, like I said. But anyway, he took the knee, he went down, Cejudo landed, like, he was kind of getting up, but then Cejudo, but bap, with those quick ones, he hit him where Dominick was not responding 3 times. Okay, Dominick had his head down, was not responding, punch, and that's when the referee decided, okay, I gotta go in and save him, and just as he went in to save him, Dominick started to stand up. I mean, that's exactly what happened. It's literally, I mean, that is exactly what happened. Those few strikes while he was on the ground not responding. I mean, dude, Cejudo's throwing, he's throwing fast. You got to get in there, man. You can't let these guys get hit when they're unconscious, right? But Dominick has a legit beef that is early stoppage. I mean, it is what it is. But the post fight, right, where he retires. Okay, this is, I don't know. This is actually, I mean, this is a great topic. Like, there's lots of meat here for me to go over with you guys. So, what did Conor do after, I don't know, every fight when he was negotiating, before he got his massive deal? How many times do you think Conor tweeted that he was retiring? Because this is the deal. If the UFC and Dana know that you need the money and that you can't retire, like that you're not in a position to retire, what leverage do you have? I mean, honestly, what leverage do you have? I mean, you could play hardball and say, like, I'm not fighting for under this, and eventually the UFC will come around. but you don't have any real leverage. Like the way like when you're shopping for a car and you go, you know what? I think actually we're not really gonna. Well, we'll come back in a week or two. We're not gonna make a decision today. We're just gonna walk away. And then they come back there. Hold on. Okay, look. What if we knock $2,000 off the top and then we reduce your monthly payments by $30? And you're like, oh, you guys could just do just like that, huh? Don't need to go for approval. $2,000 off the top, $30 a month. It's still not really gonna do it though. I don't know. It's a good deal, but it's not quite there. Okay, well, what gets you there? Listen, if we could knock $5,000 off and take it down $75 a month, then I think that we could do it. Okay. Hang on, let me go in the back. They go in the back. They're like, okay, we'll go back $3,500. And then they meet you in the middle, and then that's your deal, right? Okay. Well, if you don't have the ability to not fight anymore, then you don't have the ability to credibly threaten to not fight again in retirement, right? So like, or not fight. Period. They know you need the money. So if you don't have a gym open, you don't have other sources of income. You're just a fighter. Dana's got you by the balls. And again, I look at this as business, okay? Dana can't just pay everybody whatever they want. That's not how this works. It's a capitalist system. You get paid what you're worth, right? And I will go over that in a second. But the bottom line is, if you have the ability to credibly say, I'm not going to fight anymore, then the UFC has to pay you what you're worth, because they're like, oh man, like this guy's, he's too valuable. We can't let him go. And so like you look at Conor McGregor. Okay, check this out. So Dana said that Conor generates $20 million at the gate every time he fights. Okay, so it's $20 million right there, right? So the average UFC, I know, like, listen, I haven't looked these numbers up, so don't jump down my throat in the comments. I mean, sure, most people who would know these numbers strong enough are not even going to watch this far, because you're casuals and you're suckers. Anyways, but here's the deal. So if you like think like, I know like the really kind of sorry pay-per-views do like a 250,000, 300,000 pay-per-view buys, right? Or 200, something like that. And the really good ones do 750, 800,000, something like that. Like they're, I know DC said his biggest one was like around 800,000, I believe. So I'm basing this on things like that, things that I've heard people say. But I do know that like, the Whitaker and Romero one didn't do very well and did like 250,000 buys or something like that. So that's the range that you're talking about, right? So like, let's say that the average event does, call it 400,000, 450,000 buys, and does a $6 million gate, right? Now you break that out at $65 per purchase, per pay-per-view, and it comes out to around $30 million, right? So an average event generates about $30 million. Now Conor is going to do 1.2 million buys, or certainly 1 million buys every time, right? So you bump the gate up, call it $14 million. You bump the pay-per-views up a guaranteed, and we're talking Conor by himself, okay? These other cards that do 1 million buys are stacked, right? They got a bunch of great fights. You could put Conor against a homeless guy and then put the prelims, a bunch of fifth graders, and that thing's going to do 1 million pay-per-views. So you look at that and you're talking about, literally, I did the math earlier. You're talking about like a $90 million event versus a $30 million event. So you're talking about a $60 million swing when Conor fights, okay? Conor says, I'm retiring. You're like, oh, no, you're not. You pay Conor his $30 million, you're still up $30 million on what you normally generate from an average event, right? So he's worth it. He knows what his value is. Pay him this $30 million and it's worth it. Period, point blank, stamp it, right? So Henry Cejudo, he's not there, but he's the 2-belt champion. Now listen, I don't know this for sure, but if he's saying he's retiring, what my guess is that he's not on the last fight of his deal, because if he was, then he wouldn't have to do this, right? So I think that he knew that if he won, he would be the belt holder at 135 and 125. And if he says, I'm retiring, they have 2 weight classes where in both divisions they have no viable contenders. Do you understand how valuable Henry Cejudo is? Like, seriously. Okay, so Henry Cejudo's gone at 135. Who are you going to have fight for the belt? Aldo coming off a loss and Moraes coming off 2 losses. Peter Yan, who no one knows, against, Jose Aldo. 125? Nobody versus nobody? Like, seriously. You have no options at either division. Henry Cejudo might be the most valuable guy in the UFC, aside from, like, just in terms of his position. You are fucked at both divisions. Literally both. Like, if someone, like, okay, so let's say Kamaru Usman stepped out at 170, you're fine. Let's say Khabib stepped out at 155, you're fine. 185, you got Murderer's Row up there. 205, John Jones is kind of cleaning that division out. Heavyweight, you'll be totally fine, because Francis is probably going to be the belt holder soon anyway. But those two divisions, dude, you got Cejudo and no one. Like, there's just, and it's partially by circumstance, it's partially from there just never really being an emergent star at 125, but at 135, Garbrandt is the guy. Garbrandt is the one who is the star, fundamentally. And then you got TJ Dillashaw, obviously. You can have him quit, and then TJ comes back, you have him fight somebody and just give him the belt after the EPO, but I'd rather puke than have TJ win the belt without earning it back. He needs to prove that he can win without EPO. Like, listen, I'm not going to just directly say for sure that he's been, taking PEDs since time immemorial, but I will tell you this for goddamn sure, that if Dana went back and tested all his old samples and he was hot for EPO for his last 10 fights, there's not a chance in the fucking world that Dana is going to announce that to the world. I mean, that's for sure. That's for sure. Keep that on the low. Because that's not just it looks bad on TJ. That looks awful on the UFC to have a fighter who had been cheating and had been a champion for that long. So, we're just not going to know. We're not going to know. Now, John Jones, in traditional tangent fashion, I will tell you this. Of course, John Jones was taking PEDs before, but when John Jones was on his layoff from the DUI, he got into powerlifting. And if you guys haven't seen pictures of that, he looks like he was the strongest. He said, he's like, I was trying to be the strongest dude in Arizona or in New Mexico. And it's possible that that's when he started. It doesn't matter. I mean, matter of fact, who cares about John Jones? Bottom line is TJ, if he wants that 135 belt, he needs to beat someone good. He needs to beat someone real good. And Marlon Moraes is the biggest risk to him. I would love to see Aldo fight TJ, but none of them are going to be the real champion unless Cejudo fights. So he's got tremendous leverage, right? Okay, so that's that. Now, Francis Ngannou. I already talked about him. I don't even have anything to add to that. He hit so hard, a human being cannot absorb that damage. Period. I do not think he's going to lose again. I think that he has trained wrestling. I think he knew going into this fight that this guy was going to try to stand and bang with him. And he's like, oh, are you sure? And he put him in the ground in 20 seconds. Exactly what I said was going to happen. And I bet that. I bet him to win. I bet him to win by knockout. Bet him to win by knockout in the first round. Yahtzee. And, he's going to have to get a title shot. And, I guess it depends on what happens with Stipe and DC. I mean, Stipe is acting like he can't fight because he can't train. He's a first responder. I mean, he doesn't really have to fight. He probably made a fortune for the... Well, actually, you know what? He didn't have a belt for the second DC fight, but, who knows? I mean... He's got money. The guy, like, he's a full-time fighter. I would imagine that Stipe is a guy whose life can afford his life just on his firefighter's salary. He probably bought his house cash with money from the UFC. Probably has some toys, but bottom line is he doesn't need the money from the UFC. He doesn't need it. He doesn't look like a fancy guy. He's probably set for life with money, so he's not tripping. He's like, I'm the champ. I'll come back and fight. when I can train. I'm not going to go in before I'm fully prepared. So. I don't see DC taking an if DC fights anyone besides Stipe, it's going to be John Jones. And if there is a god that pays attention to MMA, that's it. Like, that is my only request for the rest of my life. Okay? I won't ever ask for who's going to win anything. All I ask is that fight happens. right? And, oh, see? That was them crying just at the thought of it not happening. So, Pettis and Cowboy, let's talk about that, because those guys have a lot left in the tank, man. Those guys look good. They look good. Especially the part where Pettis poked Cowboy in the eye and then they just really brawled. That was awesome, right? Like, Cowboy's like, come on, man, we're friends. And Pettis is like, I think you misunderstood what's going on. We're friends, but I'm trying to decapitate you. Like, we're fighting. This matters. But here's the thing. Why can't there be draws in fights? I really don't understand. I don't understand this, and I will say this at the top of my lungs. What is wrong with the UFC implementing draws? Like, if it's a championship fight, of course that doesn't count. But in fights where, it's just two guys that are fighting, it's not a huge implications in terms of the rankings. I mean, well, even that. How about two guys? They fight it out. It's a valiant fight. They're balls to the wall. No one has any idea who won the fight. How about we just don't decide who won the fight and we say that round was a draw? How come that round's a draw is not an option for the refs, for the judges? I'm sorry. Give them that round was a draw as an option that they reluctantly can use. But like, you're telling me Anthony Pettis won that fight? But you're telling me Cowboy won that fight? That fight's a draw. That fight's a draw. I mean, simple as that. I was very impressed with how Cowboy came out. He took a lot of shots. I'm very glad that he has more left because that guy is incredible to watch. And listen, he's lost 4 in a row, but that proved, he fought Ferguson, Gaethje, Conor. Okay? Everyone loses to those guys, right? Pettis, he looked great, man. He looked great. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is Bryce Mitchell, because good Lord, that kid is the best grappler I've ever seen. Ever. I have never seen a more dominant grappler ever than that guy. If you didn't watch that fight, go watch that Bryce Mitchell fight. And the dude he was fighting is a black belt in jiu-jitsu who said he was going to take his arm home with him. And Bryce was like, oh, really? How about I just put you in a twister for 3 full rounds? It was unbelievable how good that guy. I'm serious. Like, if you think like, I don't care about grappling, watch him grapple and then tell me that. Watch him grapple and tell me that grappling is not an interesting part of the fight. Unbelievable how impressive that kid was. Oh, other thing. Fabricio Verdum versus Olenek. Yeah, that was an interesting fight because both of them are like 60 years old, but yeah, I don't know. Fabricio's coming off a juice pop. He's 42 years old. But, man, that guy, dude, if he throws those knees he has, good Lord. A regular human being would eat one of those and just be unconscious for a month. But, yeah, I've probably been talking long enough. I'm going to cut it off here. Listen, I am asking you guys. I want to grow this channel. I want to do this full time. There's only one way that's going to happen, and that is if I can grow the channel. I'm not going to stop posting, but let's go, man. If you're telling me you're getting better analysis on other channels, that's fine. Tell me about it. Tell me in the comments who is doing a better job with a microphone in front of them talking about MMA. Tell me who they are because I want to watch their channel, honestly. But if you're not, subscribe, ring the bell, and tell everybody you know because I'm cranking out content that is gold, son. Gold. But anyway, so I appreciate you guys. Like it, subscribe, ring the bell. That's all I got.